Welcome to the Boston, Massachusetts Living Channel. I'm Joe Turco and I'm here with the top relocation team in all of Boston. Right now, we have the best presentation for you. Make sure you take notes and pause the video if you need to. This is the ultimate guide to relocating to Boston, Massachusetts. We'll be discussing the 4 most important things that you need to know when you're moving here. Now, if you're watching this video and you're doing your research, chances are you're looking for that information. And I'll be honest, we often admire the beauty of New England style homes. However, I made the mistake of moving to the wrong area. I'm a local, but I was raised outside of state, so I can give you the benefit of my experience both living here and coming back as an adult and, not knowing everything. So today I'm going to discuss 4 major topics in this presentation. Let me emphasize that where you live is very important. I live close to a major highway, so if you're commuting, you should definitely take that into account. We'll use a list from niche.com that shows the best areas to live in Boston. I'm not allowed to steer in any way, but this list does a great job of showing all the different places around the city and in it, which is the 24th largest in the entire nation. So what this will do is ruling out areas that's most important. Like, let's be honest, you're not always going to find the perfect area, and sometimes you have to start ruling out a bunch of these areas. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the best areas, and we'll go on the map and we'll showcase what it's like. We'll talk about the pros, the cons of those areas, and I'll give you the truth about some of those areas and why you may or may not like living there. And then we'll hit it with the cost of living. So again, this is the ultimate guide to moving to Boston, Massachusetts. There's never been anything like this. I wish I had had it when I was relocating. So real quick, before I continue, I'm going to need you to comment down right below, right now, what area or what city and state that you're moving from. I'm from Boston, but I went to high school and college in New York. My wife is from Saratoga, New York, where the racetrack is. So when we met, I was living overseas while working in the footwear industry, and she was here in Boston after college. Well, I relocated from working overseas back to Boston, and you can't get much different than that. And we love it here and are raising our 2 sons here. But comment down below where you're moving from. Right now, I'm super curious to know. So if you're relocating to Boston, alright, so now we're going to be discussing those best areas to live. But one thing I want to talk about before we get there, and I give you my example of, living here in Boston, one of the top areas, is that, we really enjoy when people reach out to us. We make the plan. We're the #1 relocation team here in Boston. We've helped hundreds of people move and relocate and buy a house here. So we actually schedule a Zoom call with you. We go on the Zoom. We pull up the map, we go over these areas in super high detail. Our contact information is down in the description below. You're seeing it on the screen too. So just make sure that you copy that down at some point, get our email or our number, and just text us and schedule a call so that we can jump on the Zoom, plan this out for you, because these are the little things that I didn't know moving here and that you don't know. So when we start talking about these things that you like, that you don't like, and that's what I'm going to talk about here shortly, and we're going to break it all down into the different areas and get going. So I would love it if that sounds good to you. If you then, want to talk about that area, we do it. If it doesn't and you don't like that area, oh no, I hate it, that would never be for me, then boom, we rule it out. It's gone. But just understand, sometimes when you're away from these major highways, in the thick of them, they're going to be a little different than what you expect. So that's why it's so important that we jump on that Zoom call and get things started. But now we're going to get right into it and talk about the best areas to live according to niche.com. So whenever you look at niche.com, it's going to break it down into cities, suburbs, school districts, you name it. There's an area It's usually not always like perfect, but that's why I'm here. That's why I can help you, and we'll get it going for you. All right, so let's jump into that first area that we're going to talk about. Pro areas, love it. A lot of people, and I just made a video about it, so go watch it if you want more details for 2023, is Brookline. And Brookline is a suburb of Boston. It's got a population of about 63,000 people, according to niche.com. It's in Norfolk County, so it's just outside of and borders the Boston Metro. And let me tell you, it is one of the best places to live in all of Massachusetts. Living in Brookline offers residents that kind of urban feel. You know, let's be honest, most rent their home. So if you're purchasing there, it's going to be a great investment, because if you ever do decide to relocate again, it is an investment opportunity. There is so much going on there because there's bars, there's restaurants, there's coffee shops, there's so many parks. I mean, it's a hub for young professionals, professional athletes, and it is something to keep in mind. And again, according to niche.com, it does tend to lean liberal, but that's a little bit about Brookline. And just a couple quick bullet points. Again, according to niche.com, Brookline is the #1 best place to live in Massachusetts. It is the #1 best suburb to live in Massachusetts, and it is ranked #3 for the best public schools in all of Massachusetts. But hey, let's keep going, because Brookline might not be your cup of tea. You might be looking to look in a different area, and we want to talk about those. Okay, so another area to consider if you're, relocating here, you're looking at what are the best places, what are the places that I really want to look at to get a feel for. Well, this is in what's termed as Metro West, so it is west of Boston in one of its suburbs, and that suburb is Wayland. Wayland is a, just amazing, nice kind of small town feel. It only has a population of about 14,000 people. It's in Middlesex County and is one of the best places to live, according to niche.com. It kind of offers, this sparse suburban feel, and most people there do own their home. There's a lot of coffee shops, there's a lot of parks, and if I'm honest, there's also a lot of retirees. So it's something to check out and a great area, and you really want to be thinking about what it's going to be like for your situation in terms of your commute. Do you have to send kids to school? Are you going into the city a lot? Do you need access to 90? There's so many things to consider, and you really have to look at locationally, plus just with the fit and the vibe of the town, what's going to be best for you. All right, one of the next great areas that we want to highlight, and it is hands down one of my favorite, because let's be honest, I just feel smarter when I'm there, is Cambridge, Massachusetts. It is bordering right on Boston. You just have to jump over the Charles River, can walk across the bridge. It is amazing. It has a population, again, according to niche.com, of about 120,000 people. And let's are wicked smart. Yeah, I know it's a terrible joke, but I had to make it. Dad jokes are part of these videos, and it is part of this life. So just wanted to put that out there. I mean, it is in Middlesex County, and it does have some of the lowest taxes in the entire state because it is such a well-run town. One of the best places, again, according to niche.com, to live. It is ranked #3 overall for Massachusetts. And I mean, this is an epicenter of education, of the arts, of a lot of things to do. Believe it or not, we have a great video for that too. So go in, check out that video. But let's keep moving. Let's give you kind of that general tour of where we're going and what's going on. Our next one that we want to highlight is Sharon. It is, again, one of the top 10 according to niche.com. It has a population of about 20,000 people and is in Norfolk County, and it is just this amazing kind of New England style town. It's very diverse. It has great rated schools according to niche.com, and it ranks number 12 for best public schools in the state, and it is also ranking overall number 14 in best places to raise a family, again according to niche.com, in Massachusetts as a whole. So I mean, it is an amazing place. You should definitely be checking it out. It is slightly south of the city, and it's kind of rounding out some of those different places that you might want to look at. Okay, and rounding out that kind of southern south of Boston tier is going to be Hingham, Massachusetts. And let me tell you, it is a phenomenal town right by where I personally live. It is oceanfront. There is the ferry that takes you right from Hingham right into the seaport of Boston, so you can commute by taking a boat. How cool is that? It is on that south shore, and it is kind of where, depending, you want to think about things like that Cape traffic and what's going on. Again, according to niche.com, there's about 25,000 people, and it is part of Plymouth County. It is one of the best places to live, and it has kind of that dense suburban feel. It has a great, very patriotic town center. Some of the roads even have red, white, and blue for the stripes instead of just plain yellow. I mean, there's a lot to like, and it is one of those kind of coastal beachfront towns. Okay, so one of those major topics is going to be the major roadways and sections. So as you can see, I've pulled up a map of Boston. You can see all of the different roads, and as you can imagine, and as I'm sure you've probably heard about, traffic can be difficult. Where you live really matters, and what we want to look at is highlighting, some of the different areas that you might want to consider. I live in an area where, I'm minutes away from downtown and I have a lot of options, but if you're looking at coming here and you're considering what your commute's going to be, there's a couple different areas that you have to know. So the first thing that I want to draw your attention to is this is Boston. This is the epicenter, but the roadways are basically set up in rings around it for the major highways. So the first one that we're going to talk about is 90. Now 90 is also known as the Mass Pike. It goes all the way into the seaport, and then if you go out, it will bring you through Back Bay, through Brookline and Newton, out past Waltham, and then honestly, it will bring you all the way to New York. So it is one of the most traveled spots, most traveled roads. It is a toll road. It is something that you have to be conscious of, because if you're going to be on the Mass Pike or 90, it is going to be cutting across our entire state, all the way from the ocean to New York. Now, what intersects it is 93, which is right here. So it goes south down to the Braintree Split, which then goes down towards Cape Cod, or it goes north and then you're going all the way up into New Hampshire. So again, it kind of makes a cross with 90, and if you're near those intersections, guess what? You're going to be having a tremendous amount of traffic. Now, within that, we have these circles that kind of ring around the city. So you have 95 that is traveling up and around from the south all the way west past Lexington and then up and around. So you're going to have these points where 95 meets 93. You're going to have it where 95 meets 90. You're going to have it where it again meets 93. And it's this ring that kind of centers around Boston. And then as you look out further, you can see there's another ring all the way up here that goes from 495. Notice that we keep a pretty generic approach in the naming of our routes, but it's a bigger ring that surrounds both Boston and the other 95 ring. And at each of those different points, you're going to see that there's traffic. There's, going to be gridlock. There's going to be opportunities to get stuck. So some of the major things that you have to understand when you're considering moving to Boston or to one of its suburbs is just what the traffic patterns are, where you're going to have to commute to, and what that's going to do for your day-to-day. Now, if you are, for example, working in Boston and you are living south of the city in one of the suburbs in, say, Scituate, great beach town, what you're going to notice is, oh, hey, I have to get onto 3. It's going to connect up to 95 and then through to 93 and going up into Boston. Well, everybody down from Cape Cod all the way up is going to be taking that same route all the way up. And if it's something where you have to come from there and maybe go to the west, to Newton or Westwood or Framingham, you're going to go through all that traffic and then cut across through and around 95. And the same can be said if you're living north of the city. So say you're up in Lowell and you have to take, 3 all the way down to 95 and then over 90 into the city. There's a lot of different routes, there's a lot of different options, but one of the biggest things that you have to understand is, one, if it's during Cape season, when everyone in Boston is driving down to Cape Cod to enjoy the weekend, enjoy the summer, and have a good time at the beach and, hang out with the tourists, that there's going to be considerable traffic all the way from Boston, traveling down Route 3, all the way to the bridges right here, and then down and onto the Cape. Now, likewise, if it's where you are looking to go to a Patriots game, well, that's in Foxborough. So you're going to have everybody coming down. You're going to have traffic on 95 all the way until you get here, and it is just going to be a disaster. So one of the main things that you have to know, and one of the mistakes I made when I moved here, was not understanding what my commute was going to be like and why it was so important to look at. Okay, so let's get on to that next big chunk topic in our ultimate guide to relocating to Boston, Massachusetts. So here's a kind of strange thing that a lot of people just don't know when you're coming here. Locals are very territorial about their specific little regions, either in, outside of, or around Boston. So what you need to know is the 4 major areas that we're always going to be referencing or talking about and why people care. Is bar pizza the best thing ever? Well, if you're on the South Shore, they're going to claim it is. Is the roast beef sandwich the most just amazing sandwich ever? Well, if you're a North Shore person, they're going to tell you it is. And, if you want to go out and be in the middle of nowhere, or if you're, loving horses and farms and, basically want to be able to, find a hidden dragon because it's so crazy out there, well, Metro West might be for you. And that's the thing, is there's so many different areas and people have these conceptions about them. It would be a disservice if I didn't tell you about these different areas, because, hey, this is the ultimate guide you have to know. So let's start with just keeping it simple. We're going to go based on the compass. We're going to go starting with the North Shore. So the North Shore is as it described. It's basically from the edge of the Boston Metro. So we're talking about, that Charlestown, going up into Revere and going, up in that direction, up north and along the shoreline. So it's, got a lot of beachfront communities and it has a lot of great things. It is known for having a lot of great restaurants. It's known for a lot of people that like to go up to New Hampshire and go hang out there. But, if you're a North Shore person, you know what it's about. So when people say, hey, oh yeah, I'm from the North Shore, they mean they're in that area that is north of Boston and one of the coastal towns along the ocean. Now, sounds simple, right? And it's super simple, and it is. But again, if you didn't know that because you weren't from here, you might be scratching your head and say, oh, I've never heard of that. Where is that? So let's just keep it going. So then in Boston proper, you have all of the regular Boston neighborhoods and areas. So most people will say, oh yeah, I live in Boston, but then they'll get hyper specific about, you know, the different towns or the different segments of Boston. You know, do you live in the Back Bay? Do you live in the South End? Not to be confused with Southie or South Boston. Do you live in the Seaport? Do you live in Dorchester? Do you live in, you know, Brookline? Where is it? Are you in Roxbury? Are you in Jamaica Plain? Are you in Mattapan? All these different like little areas that are considered the Boston Metro. Now, again, following the compass, if we're looking east, we have the ocean. There's nothing there. I mean, there's East Boston and the airport, but that doesn't count. But if you want to know about East Boston, check out this video up here. It'll tell you all about it. Now, where is it that, you know, we go next? Well, that's the South Shore. And like the North Shore, it's just the flip of it. It's where it's south of Boston. It's towns along the coast. So you have places like Quincy, you have places like Hingham and Duxbury and Marshfield, and it's where you have Cohasset, and you have this whole kind of different vibe. And, you know, it is along the shoreline to the Cape, so people get really grumpy because of the traffic there. Just kidding, South Shore people. But that's the thing, is something that you need to know. Now, there is a bitter rivalry between the North Shore and the South Shore. They just duke it out. Like, if you're a North Shore person, you won't be caught dead on the South Shore and vice versa. Why that is? Well, I'm going to let you get into it. I'm going to let you figure that out. But we'll talk about that more on our Zoom call when we're figuring out what areas are best for you versus what areas we want to kind of cross out. And then kind of the forgotten child is that Metro West, or the area west of Boston. So basically everybody thinks Metro West is farm country. So these are kind of things that you need to know. And the other thing is, just because a town is spelled one way does not mean that it sounds like it. You know, Quincy is not Quincy. It's just one of those things. Hingham, Haverhill, there's so many different ones. You know, Situate, I mean, people butcher that one. But that's the thing. So know your areas. Know that not every town is going to sound like it's spelled, and, you know, let's move on to that next topic. So we got our last topic coming up, the fourth one, but to do that, you're gonna have to watch the next video because it's gonna be in part 2. But what I want to remind you is, again, don't forget to comment down below where you're coming from. I can't wait to see that, and if you haven't, make sure that you shoot us a text or email to schedule that call. We're the #1 relocation team. If you haven't hit that subscribe button or hit that like button, make sure that you do so that you never miss any of our videos. If you want to know more about living in Boston, we have our next video coming right up. Make sure to go check it out. And here's the thing. We have specific videos on each of the different towns. If you don't see one that you want to know about, comment that below and we'll make sure to make you one.